Got it.
Okay, can we do the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance
To the flag
To the flag
of the United States
to the
of
United States of
America,
America,
and to the republic which stands one
stands
nation,
one nation,
under God,
God.
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty and justice for all.
justice for all. Thank you all. And let's do the roll very quickly. Doug Fenninger,
Cheryl McGlynn.
Nora McCarthy.
Tara Sunday.
Michelle Hintz.
Melanie Brady
Dutton.
Shanley.
and Doug. So I think that's all of us. And
And
Chris is here.
Chris just joined.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Next on our agenda tonight is a review of the agenda for tonight's meeting. Are there any additions or changes that we'd like to make to the agenda tonight? If not, we'll move on. I just have a very brief comment. It was just about 10 months ago that Governor Lamont and our then Commissioner Miguel Cardona came to Winchester. I hope Miguel is going to be our Secretary of Education very soon. But they came to Winchester because they wanted to give us recognition for the fact that our school was indeed open and that many other schools were not. And the governor and the commissioner were both very strongly of the opinion that it was indeed possible to have schools open safely. And we were doing that here in Winchester. And I'd like to just remind everybody that this year, Melanie, correct me, I think we've been only on remote learning entirely for about 10 days this year so far.
11 days. Yep.
11 days, which is pretty remarkable considering what other districts are going through. And as a result of that, one of the things that came up when Nora and I were meeting with Melanie last week is that we are pretty much on track for our curriculum coverage this year. So we're pretty much right where we want to be, as opposed to other districts that are
2, 3.
very, very far behind because of the shortcomings of remote learning and all the distractions that they've had to deal with. So I would just like to give Melanie, her administrative team, the teachers, the kids, and the parents, because it's really been a team effort to make this happen. And it's been a wonderful thing that our community's been able to pull together and overcome a lot of the shortcomings of this pandemic. So I just wanted to give that
1,
shout
2,
out
3,
and give
4,
everyone some
5.
recognition. Cheryl, did you want to say something, or you're just putting your hand up?
I think Mel, Doc's unmuted. That's the background noise.
Oh, okay. All right.
Doug, you're muted.
Did nobody hear what I just said for the last 3 minutes?
Nope.
Oh, we heard you for, yes, but just not recently.
I heard everything, Doug. All the kudos.
How's that? Wait, so nobody heard my comments?
No,
No,
we
we
heard
heard them.
about, it was just the last 30 seconds or so that we didn't
Oh,
hear.
okay. Well, whatever it was, I'm sure everybody got the gist of it.
We
So
got
if
it,
you can
Doug.
hear me now, let's move on to the presentations.
Okay, perfect. So I want to take a moment to be able to introduce, I'll allow them to introduce themselves, but we have with us Iris White, who's been with us for quite some time. I'm going to say 5 years now, close to 5 years, 4 years. Yeah, she's worked with us with our Commissioners Network grant. We're so thrilled to have her as a guest tonight with Lisa Lamenzo, who works in the turnaround office as the director there for the State Department of Education. And between the two of them, they have been just absolutely wholly supportive of Winchester Public Schools, our administrators at Bachelor and Pearson School, and certainly the teachers and ultimately our students that have benefited from having Commissioners Network funding. And more importantly than the funding is the training that has come from it and the sustainability that Winchester will have because of it. So without further ado, I'm going to have Iris and Lisa introduce themselves formally while I share my screen so that I can get the presentation that they've presented tonight for you.
Great, thank you so much. And good evening, Superintendent Brady Shanley, board members, and all others present in this meeting. Thank you for inviting us here this evening to speak about two of our very successful stories around the Commissioners Network. As Superintendent Brady Shanley mentioned, I am the Division Director of the Turnaround Office. And with me, I have Iris White, familiar to many of you, as she has been the turnaround consultant supporting these schools in the district for the past several years. Before we begin, I want to echo the board chair's comments that were made just a few minutes ago. We too really want to recognize the immense leadership of Superintendent Brady Shanley, Principal Roseanne Fields, Principal Barbara Silverio, this board, and really the commitment and dedication of all the teachers, staff members, families, and students during this pandemic, as well as throughout the years of the Commissioners Network. We know that this work is challenging, but as you all have witnessed firsthand, it is not only possible, but it's proven right here in Winchester. Next slide. So we know that you're very familiar with the Batchelor and Pearson story and their outstanding progress over the last several years. But we wanted to begin tonight with starting with the big picture and then diving into the impacts of their efforts and next steps. So let's begin with the timeline. Batchelor and Pearson both entered the Commissioners Network in the fall of 2016 and will exit June 30th of this year. Over the course of the 5 years, Batchelor was allocated just over 2.8 million and Pearson just over 3.2 million.
Thank you, Lisa, and good evening, everyone. It's good to be with all of you. Strength of the school plans included the intentional and aligned efforts from school to school, as well as the targeted focus areas. With the implementation of the new ELA and math curriculum, transition to next generation science standards, a systematic coaching model, engagement of strategic partnerships, and professional development of all staff, there was a clear and impactful investment in personnel to build capacity. Under Superintendent Brady Shanley's direction and leadership, this was a strategy from the very beginning. The work had to be impactful and sustainable. The Commissioners Network funding not only supported developing capacity, but the hiring of key positions to enact the work. Having the right people to drive the work is critical. Commissioners Network funding supported positions including interventionists, instructional coaches, and an inclusion coach. Next slide, please.
So now with that, we turn to the proven impact of the work. We know that there are qualitative and quantitative data that we can use to determine the progress and the impact of this work. It's one thing to have a solid plan to begin with, but implementing it, monitoring it, tweaking it along the way, and having the right people at the table matters. The next few slides will speak to the hard numbers. So what was the impact of these investments? On this slide, we take a look at the accountability index of the two schools in the state, comparing 2015-16 baseline data, which is the green bar, and it was that year prior to joining the Commissioners Network, to the most current Next Generation Accountability Report in 2018-19, which is the dark blue bar. As you know, this is a broad holistic view of multiple indicators into one index. But not only do you see the growth when compared each school to themselves, but you also see that both schools surpass the state average within 3 years. Huge accomplishment. Next slide, please.
This slide speaks to Pearson's academic growth for ELA and math using the Smarter Balanced assessments. The first two bars above the blue line highlights math growth in comparison. In 2015-16, Pearson, while in 2018-19, it exceeded the state by 12.2 percentage points. Similarly, when looking at ELA, Pearson fared well, exceeding the state average as well. Due to the fact that Batchelor is a pre-K through 2 school and does not take the Smarter Balanced assessment, Smarter Balanced assessment ELA and math growth data are not available for them. Next slide, please. Climate and culture data also showed improvements across the board when comparing individual school growth, as well as compared to the state. Pearson's chronic absenteeism rate decreased from 4.1% in 2015-16 to 3.4% in 2018-19, while Bachelor decreased their chronic absenteeism rate from 12.2% in 15-16 to 5.9% in 2018-19. Next slide, please.
So again, we know that this data is not new to you, but it's important for us to highlight in this presentation as it speaks to the impact of the work. So in addition to the data that we just shared, we also wanted to share with you other impacts of the State Department and Winchester partnership. We wholeheartedly believe that we are an intricate system learning from one another. And while Commissioners Network funding offered these schools and the district on a whole great opportunity to improve outcomes for students, know that this partnership was a two-way partnership. And this slide highlights just a few examples of that partnership and is by no means an exhaustive list. Learning from one another, the successes, as well as the lessons learned and challenges and barriers, that's key to school improvement. Having Winchester share their stories with other schools and districts across the state has been vital to the improvement of others. Whether it was having other districts visit Winchester firsthand to learn more about the curriculum development and implementation, or presenting at the numerous statewide professional development convenings. Winchester stepped up to teach others, to lift others. So thank you all for that. Next slide.
As Pearson's and Bachelor's time in the network comes to a close, I know the partnership will continue. But now what? A Commissioners Network audit was conducted at both schools last week. Findings and recommendations from the audit will inform the development of a network school exit audit report. The purpose of the exit audit is to identify the progress Bachelor and Pearson have made since entering the network in the fall of 2016, as well as inform a sustainability plan to be developed in partnership with district leadership.
So the final section of the network school exit audit will indicate the district's commitment to sustaining the successful initiatives that both schools have implemented since entering the network. As Iris mentioned earlier, sustainability has always been at the core of both schools' improvement plans. So we look forward to working with the principals and superintendent to craft a plan moving forward. Next slide. So I'll end by saying this. School improvement is challenging work. It never ends, but conditions do matter. Dramatic improvements are possible, and Pearson, Bachelor, and Winchester on the whole have proven that. We really look forward to seeing great things continue to come from Winchester. Thank you all for your time this evening, and we'll open it up to any questions or comments.
Thank you both, Iris and Lisa. That was marvelous to hear. Obviously, we've heard some of this news before, but we all know that the partnership with the state has been absolutely essential to everything we've done in the last 5 years, and the support that you folks have provided has been really, really a wonderful thing for us. And so please know we're very grateful for your support and all the money too.
Of course, you're very welcome. But even though the time is coming to an end, Iris and I always joke about this. You know, you're not going to get rid of us that easily.
No, never, never.
Well, you mentioned sustainability, and that's one of the things that comes up all the time, because we look at the fact that you know, our grant monies will go away, and we have to have a plan, which I know Melanie is well aware of and been working on. But are there other districts that are farther ahead of us in this whole Commissioners Network, the 5-year program, that have successfully, for lack of a better word, weaned themselves off? And have you seen any results of districts that are leaving the Commissioners Network and how they're faring?
Sure. You know, I think it's important, as as Winchester has done, to start thinking about sustainability from the get-go. And so that being the key, the key in any in-school improvement efforts is knowing that eventually the funds are going to dry up or they're going to decrease. So I think identifying which key positions and which key initiatives or strategies we need to continue over the next several years will be key in the next few months. I'm sure the team has already identified that, but prioritizing just what those are so that the work can sustain is going to be key. You know, one of the biggest assets to these two school plans was the development of a collective capacity, that the professional learning that went on wasn't just for, let's say, the teachers that are right before the students, but across the board, all staff members there. So that always continues. Obviously, in the first few years of an initiative, you're going to need much more support and technical assistance. But over the course of the years, it's just part of school improvement, is that constant need to improve and time to plan, monitor, and change plans accordingly. So we have found that those districts that do exit, that really take a strong look at the landscape of where they currently are and prioritize those next steps, whatever it may be, whether a position, a professional learning, extra time for teachers, and really stick to it over the course of subsequent years, fare much better than those that just end it.
And just one other thought, I know that when you put all of those resources into building capacity amongst your staff, you obviously want to keep those staff, you want to retain them. Because if you train them and you're just a training farm and everybody goes off to another district, you haven't really gained that much. And I think one of the benefits we've had under Melanie's leadership is that this is a successful district, and it's a district that people want to teach in. They want to be a part of it. So the retention has really not been an issue. In fact, we've been able to attract some very great candidates when we have had openings. So I think that's something that can't be overlooked.
Great point. Great point. That's very important. So much was invested in this staff, and so you want to definitely keep them around and support them. Even more of a reason why the sustainability metrics and measures over the next couple of years are going to matter.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the board or anyone else at this point?
No, but I'd like to thank you for your time and your effort and your energy. I know it's difficult to maintain the momentum sometimes, and your time in our classrooms has proved fruition. There have been results. So we really appreciate your ideas and your guidance. And I'd like to echo the leadership of the administration in pulling this together and really showing that our district is a stellar district. And Doug, you've often talked about excellence. So I think that's a high bar and it's a great bar. And I hope to sustain that in our district as we move forward with our own, issues and so forth as a district to sustain it. Thanks.
Lisa and Iris, I do just want to recognize that we had State Representative Jay Case just join us on here. So I just want to acknowledge his presence. And on behalf of our schools and our staff, even though our funding ends, I am committed to making sure that our partnership does not end, because like I said, while the money's fantastic, it hasn't been all about that. It's about what we've built out of that and what will continue to have a legacy here in town to be able to serve our students and our staff. So I truly appreciate all of the work that you've done with us and will continue to do with us. And I hope that you will continue to include us on the PDs that do happen throughout the rest of the Commissioners Network schools. So thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Again, thank you both, Iris and Lisa. Wonderful to have you with us tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us. Have a great evening, everyone.
Okay, good
Have a
night.
good evening. Bye-bye.
We have on our agenda next is the public hearing. Is there anyone attending the meeting remotely who would like to comment? Okay, if there's no comments, we can move on to the consent agenda items. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes to be approved. If we can do that in one motion, otherwise, if somebody has any corrections, let's hear them.
Motion to accept.
Okay, that's a motion from Chris to accept the minutes as
I'll
presented.
second.
A second from Cheryl. All in favor? Show of hands. That's unanimous. Thank you. And Chris, I apologize. I forgot to give you a warning, but you're probably expecting it by now. Do you have anything you can report to us from the Gilbert board at this point?
Sure. So we had someone new appointed to replace a trust member that left. Astrid Robitaille was appointed to the school corps. The budget was presented from the Gilbert School. It's an increase of about 2.1%. The kids are back in the building now after some of the COVID scares, and except for snow, because we can't seem to stay in school. So in the search for a new head of school, reviewing applications and preparing for interviews, which are scheduled right now for the 18th and 19th. History teacher Wendy Soltaire was named 2021 Outstanding Teacher of American History in Connecticut. Sports has got plenty news there. No wrestling, football, or competitive cheer will be happening this year. Home games are streamed online. All Berkshire League games are streamed. And they're looking into a video system in the gym. It'll be a pay to watch, much like a lot of sports like wrestling have, but that way families can, see friends and families can watch the game, alumni, anybody who's interested. It's in talks right now. They're checking with their attorney on the legalities of it. But right now they have just allowed one parent to attend games. Tomorrow night is the volleyball girls senior night, and they can have one parent, and it can only be a Gilbert parent. So slowly they're trying to reopen that up so that families can attend the games for the sports that are in session. That's all for now.
Thank you,
Chris, any word about how they're doing in terms of covering major objectives and covering the curriculum? Any comments?
We haven't had too much about that, to be honest. It's been a lot of COVID. It's been a lot of social emotional and things like that, trying to get the kids in school and staying in school. And that's where the principal report is coming.
Okay, thank you.
Dick, yes, something to add?
Also from Gilbert, there was a special finance committee on last Wednesday, and we listened to the Gilbert budget being presented. Without going into any detail, I will say that the budget contains a segment for capital improvements over $462,000. It includes replacement of a roof and some heating elements and some phone work. As I have said in the past, and I think we've agreed, the school is privately owned, and it is the feeling of some of us that we should not be financing capital improvements without from the Board of Education and the town of Winchester. I think that's something that the Board of Education needs to think about and hopefully do something about in the future. But it's a significant number, and it comes up every year, and the 260 odd thousand gets dumped in with per pupil tuition, and it should not be. Capital improvements should be separate and funded independently, and the town should not be funding a private institution. Thank you once again.
Dick, you said, initially you said 462 and then you just said 260. What's the actual number?
The total capital improvements budget item is 462,544, of which the auditorium roof is $261,260.
And they took some money from their capital reserve account to offset some of that cost. So it was actually more, it was actually 562 before the 100K they put in.
I think so.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have any correspondence to the board this evening, Melanie?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. May we hear your report then, please?
It's a long one for being remote for 2 weeks there. So I'll start out with our instructional cabinet. Under instruction. We've been talking a lot about our Lexia program, the coaching rotations, our upcoming SBAC assessments, the walkthroughs that we've been doing, and planning professional development. During the second half of January, the district needed to move to distance learning for 2 weeks due to several COVID situations. Administration continues to monitor student learning by checking in on classes and being present in the buildings to observe teachers' instruction. At the same time, we continue our routine parent and instructional meetings. One thing remote learning does not do to us is it doesn't shut us down. We keep moving just as if schools are open. All administrators in the district will be moving into their mid-year evaluations for certified staff. These evaluations will be completed by the end of the month. Several administrators in the district several administrators and coaches receive training on SBAC and accommodations planning. All administrators have received informal evaluations. Feedback sessions have been completed for some, and others are scheduled for their session. Meetings were held with school nurses to switch to the 10-day quarantine period per the CDC guidelines. The State Department of Ed conducted their mid-year evaluations for Bachelor and Pearson schools, and they also conducted extensive walkthroughs at both Bachelor and Pearson school, and that information was shared with the board. Mid-year evaluations were completed already for all non-certified staff members in the district. Barb, Rosie, and I continue to meet weekly to ensure alignment between the 3 buildings. These meetings also serve to preemptively address potential concerns in the buildings. One thing I do want to acknowledge is that we have Kim Roy with us tonight, our acting principal at the Bachelor School. So I officially want to welcome her in her official capacity as acting principal, as Rosie is actually in the hospital right now, which is super exciting. We have,
So
she's on the way home. Oh,
She's on her way home. Yeah.
false alarm.
False alarm.
All right, so we've attended and overseen multiple planning and placement teams for students with IEPs, attended and participated in several parent meetings focused on attendance, academics, and parent concerns. Our Little Owls preschool registration is accepting applications from February 1st to February 26th. All registrations have been moved to an online process. We are in the process of planning for a June in-person professional development conference for certified staff. We're going to share more information with the board as that becomes available. Students were scheduled to take their mid-year assessments in January. However, the assessments were shifted to early February. As a result, assessments will be reviewed in detail with the Board of Education during the February committee meetings. Under finance and operations, we've continued our union meetings weekly with the WEA, that's the teachers union, to keep abreast of any issues or concerns. Nancy and I are too frequently meeting to prepare for the upcoming budget. We have met with the board and held our first budget workshop. You'll receive an update tonight. Hinsdale bidding update. So we had a pre-bid meeting today where we had over 20 contractors that showed up today for Hinsdale to look at the property. We will be going out to bid. Well, it's already out to bid. That pre-bid meeting was held today. The return for the bids is looking like it's going to be the first week in March. And then the committee will meet following that to be able to pick a selected contractor for the project. So we don't have a date yet for that, but it'll be shortly after there's a thorough review of all the submitted bids. And then we'll meet with the building committee to be able to select a contractor once we have the kind of template of everybody's bids that they've submitted. We have attended and participated in several ad hoc negotiation meetings with the Board of Ed and the Gilbert negotiation team. Continue to deal with COVID situations throughout the district. However, I would say that we have seen a marked decrease in the amount of COVID situations since we've come back. So that's nice. I'm hopeful that we'll continue on a decline. All buildings during the time that we were shut down in January did receive a thorough cleaning during those 2 weeks. Our Commissioners Network grant review has taken place regarding our funding usage. ESSER funds have been allocated for the second round, and we are set to receive, as I've informed the board, about $850,000. Be advised, though, that money is specifically aligned to certain things related to COVID. That is just not general funds money. Hinsdale School Renovation Committee continues to meet. During our next meeting, we will be awarding the first bids. We are also in the process of working towards submitting for our first reimbursements to the DAS office. We actually have a meeting tomorrow to be able to do our first submissions and reimbursements to the town. We're expecting that number to be about a $600,000 submission that we're doing tomorrow. I've participated in multiple online interviews with the Board of Selectmen for town manager and participated in one-on-one interviews with ultimately the selected person. Today at 2 o'clock, they did announce our new town manager is. His name is Joshua Steele Kelly, and he's coming to us from Bolton. So I'll be excited for the Board of Education to be able to meet him. We look forward to partnering with him. Under professional learning and leadership, attended multiple Litchfield County meetings, attended the weekly Department of Public Health conference calls, multiple calls with the Governor of Lamont's office regarding emergency services. Our weekly Litchfield County COVID conversations, received training on unemployment trends by Pullman and Comley, training on the legislative process, attended the Northwest Community College legislative meeting, attended Shipman and Goodwin Legal Issues Forum, received my updated training and certification for CPI, which falls under special education for restraints and de-escalation. 100% of our staff have updated their DCF mandated training that is required. I attended and participated in the Explorations Board meeting and attended a webinar hosted by Ed Advance on the process of diversification of our workforce. That concludes my report. Doug, would you like me to move into enrollments and attendance?
A couple questions first.
Certainly, sorry. You know I'm not good at asking questions.
Any information on when our staff can expect to be vaccinated?
So I can give you an approximate. Right now, they are opening it up to 65 plus. I have several staff members that fall into this category right now. I did poll those staff members today and asked them if they'd like to be uploaded into the VM system. Some of them selected yes, some of them selected no. So those staff members are eligible. The remaining part of the staff, what I'm hearing is it's going to take about a month for the 65 plus population to be able to be vaccinated. I do not foresee the teachers getting in the mix in the next month. So I would say, you know, at the earliest right now, I would say we're probably looking at mid-March, but I expect it to potentially be a little longer than that.
Okay. And when is our new town manager going to begin?
Late April.
Thanks. Any other questions for Mel on the first part of her report? Chris?
Mel, you said that you had about 20 contractors. Is that for GC or is that individual contractors?
It was a mix of both. We had a mix of GCs and subs.
Thank you.
Were they mostly local, do you know, or they?
I couldn't tell you that. I tried not to get too one-on-one with them. I really tried to stay generic with answering questions.
Yep.
Because it was a pre-bid meeting, so I didn't really get into that.
Okay.
But we do have a list of contractors that Mark from the town will be putting out because that's part of public disclosures who attended the pre-bid meeting. So if you want to see the specifics, they will be listed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so let's move on to enrollments.
Okay, so moving into enrollment right now, again, our enrollment's holding steady. We have not had any fluctuation. We're sitting right now at 533, which is only a difference from September of 2 students. So we're holding very steady over the course of time. Our attendance and chronic absenteeism I hate to say this, but I feel like even looking at this data is pointless because we're encouraging families to keep their kids home when they're sick, and we're quarantining kids for 10+ days sometimes. You know, year to date as a district, we're at 19%, which is horrific compared to where we've been in the past. But it's our own doing and of following the rules that are put in place right now. So, you know, it kind of is what it is. It's certainly nothing that we're going to change at this point. We just keep encouraging our families to stay healthy, and when they're not healthy, to please stay home. That's what we want you to do this year. Tara?
Tara?
How does our chronic absenteeism look comparatively, though, to other districts that we're?
So in looking at other districts that are like Commissioners Network and Alliance, we are at the top of the pile. Looking at other districts locally, I would say we're probably, because we have a little bit of a different population, little more of a diverse population and a little bit more of an urban center to us compared to some of our counterparts. Nobody's looking great in this area. You know, the state's not putting out a lot of attendance numbers anymore because, quite frankly, they weren't looking great when they started to put them out at the beginning of this. So I would say we're no different than any other district right now. So going into Gilbert's enrollment, they are at 422 Winchester students right now. That's down 10 from their original enrollment in August. They have 21 international students and 1 other district, which is Heartland. And then looking at the next sheet, we have our updated appropriated budget for fiscal year 21. Nancy, I'm going to refer to you if you can unmute for any questions. So looking at this, our amount that we are in the black as of right now, Nancy's just went through and, you know, did some journal entering and being able to move some funds around based upon available grants. So that's moved us to $129,000 into the black right now. So that's a solid place to be at this point in the school year in terms of our appropriated year-end projections. And then looking at our grants right now, again, from journal entering and kind of looking at our grants and where we're actually at in terms of usage. Right now we're sitting at a in the black at $205,000. And part of that will be what we traditionally do, our carryover funds that are allowed into the next school year. We never run those grants all the way down because we want to be able to utilize those grants going forward and get the best bang for our buck out of them. Any questions on financials?
Are you going to need us to approve any line item transfers, or do we do that all at the end of the year?
We don't have any for you at this time.
Yeah, probably next month. I'm starting to look at those now. It may be the month after. I'm not big on doing a lot of them, of course, but it might make sense to do a few of them.
Thank you.
And then going into the meals count, what I have for you today is that inside your packet, Nancy's been adding now a basically monthly comparison of meals. You will see that overall we're a little bit down on meal count, and largely because we have a larger percentage of kids that are true homeschoolers this year and kids, that are distance learners that are not coming in every day or picking up their weekly meals. So that, I believe, is the decrease and why we see the meals count lower than what they have been in the past. Any question on meals?
The January numbers just came in after we had sent the board packet out, and unfortunately January is down, not unlike December. So.
Thank you. Any questions on meals? No? Okay. And our food service budget, oh my goodness, it's in the black. $25,000 is where we're sitting. So we're doing well right there. So we'll take that. I do have some recommendations for hires, but Doug, you let me know if you're ready to go into that.
Yeah, let's move forward, please.
All right, we are moving. All right, we have hired, as you know, Linda Farnham had resigned. She was Seamus's executive assistant in the special services office. She's actually been working remotely for us for the past few months, but we have hired a replacement for her. Julia Cardillo will be coming in and joining us there as the executive assistant in his office.
Mel, can I take a minute just to publicly thank Linda for all of her service to Winchester?
Absolutely.
So guys, I don't know, a lot of you might not know Linda, but some of you might have some experiences talking with Linda in my office. Linda was instrumental in really turning around the special ed office, the student services offices when I took over. Her financial background, her knowledge of the district, you know, we really worked hand in hand with the business office and Nancy to really turn around a lot of things in this district. She was always willing to go above and beyond, whether it be her union responsibilities as the union president for the secretaries, custodians, and a few other areas. But just publicly, I want to acknowledge her for the work that she's done. She didn't really get much of a send off because of COVID and everything else that's going on, but definitely well deserved. She put a lot of years into this district. I think something like 15, 16 years in this district total between paraprofessionals, secretarial work, and things like that. So just want the board to acknowledge, you know, that her good work, and, you know, she wasn't able to get that proper send off that I think she deserves. So thank you.
Seamus, thanks for bringing that up. The next one will be going to Bachelor as a building sub. Erica Monroe, our building sub over at Bachelor, actually moved into a long-term maternity leave coverage. Again, that's part of us growing internal teachers to be able to grow them and then take on teaching positions. And that is all I have for new hires. We do have one action item. Doug, when you're ready.
Yeah. On the lease on Oak Street?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about that, please.
So we do have in the contracted lease with the St. Anthony's School, the lease needs to be notified of renewal by March. So on a board action item tonight, we have the extension of the Oak Street lease, and the amount for the extension would be $77,200. I would recommend to the board that we do accept the extension of the lease. At this point, we are unsure where we will be in terms of COVID. It does not seem like COVID is going to be gone, if you will, for the start of the next school year. Our youngest students, ages 16 and below, will not be getting vaccinated. Therefore, you know, until there either becomes herd immunity or the majority of individuals are vaccinated, I find it necessary to be able to continue the social distancing and protections that we've been able to put in place due to having the Oak Street School. Be happy to answer any questions if you have.
Just a comment that we're really committing to beyond the 77,000 because the operational expense attached to that building would be something we're also committing to. But I think we discussed this at our budget meeting, and Cheryl, I think, brought it up. She was pretty emphatic in agreement with you that COVID's not going anywhere. Between the variants and the vaccination issues, I think this board would be irresponsible not to plan for another year like we're going through now.
And Doug, just to talk a little bit more about the financing there around the operational costs. The ESSER2 funds have afforded us the ability to be able to put those funds into the ESSER2 COVID-related fees.
Oh, that's true. That's good news.
And move that out of the funding of the appropriated budget.
Wonderful.
Well, that makes it an easier decision, doesn't it?
Definitely. Any other questions on that or comments?
Wait, I just missed that piece about funding. Can you repeat that? Made it
Nancy,
easier.
please correct me if I'm wrong in any of my wording here. The operational costs and some staffing costs associated with the operations of the Oak Street School will be able to be funded out of the ESSER2 funds that we received. And it is really in alignment with what the purpose of those funds are truly meant for.
Okay.
Would anybody like to make a motion to renew that lease or to take advantage of the option
I'll make a
for the
motion.
coming year? Okay, that was Cheryl. A second. That was Chris, I guess, Dick, either one.
Second.
All in favor? Any against or abstentions? I see none, so I think it's unanimous. Thank you all. And we have some policies. We have one that's come back for at least the third time, the minority recruitment. Have we got the language where we want it to be for this?
It is perfect. Third time is a charm. So,
Okay, Cheryl, I assume you've read it and you're good
Yes,
with it?
I'm fine with it.
Okay, good. So
we
that
should be
this would
well
the second
familiar
read.
with it by this point.
Yeah.
So this is our second and final read on the minority recruitment policy 4111.3. Is there a motion to approve that policy? From Tara and a second from Dick. All in favor? Any against or abstentions? Michelle, you're good with this?
Yes.
Good, thank you. So it's approved unanimously. And we have a first read for 51414, reporting of child abuse. Any
Yes, and-
comments or questions on that? Can we talk about that a little bit?
This was the policy that we had discussed at our policy committee, where we took the actual policy of one sample and the regulations of another and did a combined version, and the regulations would be included within the policy for this one.
Right, I remember talking about that. All right, so that will be put on our next agenda for a second read then and potential approval. Any questions on that?
No,
Would somebody be willing to make a motion to go into executive session so we can briefly talk about the Gilbert? That's Michelle, second from Cheryl. I'm
Wait,
inviting
sorry.
Melanie.
Hold on, motion. Who are we inviting?
Melanie,
That's it. And who made the first motion? Who made the first?
Cheryl,
Cheryl
for Chris.
McLean. Chris Peterson. And who second?
Cheryl.
At what time?
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Looks unanimous. Thank you all for our visitors. Seamus, who's Seamus got there? God, we see cats tonight, babies.
This is Taylor.
family.
Barb's got the cheetah out.
Mommy's doing bed with the other ones. I got this one.
Thanks, Seamus.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Good
Bye.
night.
Hi.
Thanks, Seamus.
Thank you.
Good night, Nancy. Good night, Bob.
night.
Kim. Okay, I think we're just down to the board.
No, we
Hold
still-
on, Doug, let me stop recording.
Yeah.
Okay.
We are recording.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion with Jim.
Motion.
Give it to Alex.
Got it, Nora?
Yeah, Alex first. Who's second?
Okay.
Kristen.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
See you soon.